This is livingpianos.com. I am Robert Estrin with how to save vast amounts of time in your practicing. This is for real. And I've seen it so many times. Well, how is it possible that you could save vast amounts of time in your practice? I'm sure you clicked on this because we all want to save time in practicing. In fact, my entire teaching method is how to maximize the effectiveness of the time you spend, because if you're like me, it's hard to find the time, even for me, and I dedicated my life to the piano, and still, even for me. Concert touring artists, same thing. How do they have time to practice when they're on the road so much? Here is the simple key is you never want to learn anything wrong. Now that sounds really simple, doesn't it? But how is that possible? Well, let's break it down for you. You sit down to learn a new piece, and maybe you read through it a couple of times to get familiar with it. And then maybe you keep reading through it and you're missing certain things, and maybe you try to correct the things you're missing, and you go through it again and again, and maybe you just take the first page and you do certain things, maybe you slow down. Well, how about this? Instead of all of those little things here and this kind of like this spot practicing where you do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, what about thinking of it like a pilot ready to take off a jet aircraft full of passengers? They know that people's lives are at stake. So what do? They have a checklist. Even though the plane was already checked in the hangar by the crew, the pilots are going to check every single part of that aircraft because it is life or death. Well, you know what? Your practicing, to some extent, is like that. Because your time, what is life but the time you have? And if you're spending time at the piano that isn't accomplishing anything, you're wasting that time. And your time is precious. It's the most precious thing we all have. So how can you avoid learning anything wrong? Well, start off your piece. Sure, read through it a couple of times, but then get to work. I've talked about this so much in previous videos, but for those who have not had been privy to this information, it's a life changer. And if you want to get deeper into this, join my Living Piano Mastermind Club. You can check the description for a free consultation. So the first thing you do after reading through a couple of times, just the first day only, is you start learning the piece. And you do it systematically, like that pilot checklist. You start with the smallest possible phrase that makes musical sense. So if you were thinking of learning the exposition of a sonata or the first page, reduce it down to a measure or two, or maybe 4 measures. It depends upon the nature of the score, but the smallest possible amount that makes musical sense. I mean, 1 or 2 notes might not mean anything, but you take the tiniest phrase and you don't play it. No, far from it. You study it. Each aspect one at a time. First, you study the notes. Make sure you know what all those notes are. Look at the key signature. Look at the time signature. Look at everything. But concentrate first just on the notes. Then the rhythm. Before you've played it, count it out. Tap it out. Make sure you understand the rhythm. Then look over the fingering. Still not playing it, just in your lap. Finger it out. Are you done? Not by a long shot. What about the phrasing, the staccatos, the slurs, the accents, all of that, tenutos, portamentos? Take note of all of those things. Finally, expression, which is everything else, like the dynamics. Now you might think, can't you put the dynamics in later? And here is the fallacy of this thinking, is that you're always playing a dynamic level. And if you're not learning the right dynamics, you're learning the wrong dynamics. And here is the thing. Have you ever tried to correct something you're used to playing wrong? It is the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life because you get used to the feel of it. Your fingers naturally go there. You get used to the sound of it. Everything about it becomes part of you. And to undo that is excruciatingly difficult. So you don't allow that to happen. You study all those aspects of the score, every last detail, just this tiny phrase, and you master it, just that one hand. Get it memorized. Then you go on to the other hand the same way. The notes, rhythm, fingering, phrasing, and expression of the left hand. Get each hand so polished and easy that you can put them together with ease, very, very slowly. Once again, checking your work back and forth, back and forth. This is whether you're memorizing it or not. And go on to the next phrase the same way. And you might think this will take you forever to learn the piece, but it's just the opposite, because you never have that unbelievable challenge of unlearning what you've learned wrong, which takes at least 10 times the work compared to what I'm describing. Not only that, but you'll find that you'll understand the score in a deeper level, connecting phrases as you go, and then you'll be rewarded with repeated sections, and it will take you drastically longer to learn a piece of music. This is how you can maximize the time you spend and save vast amounts of time in your practice. If you've never tried this before, I want you to take a new piece you've never played before and make it an easier piece than you think you need, just so you can try this method out for yourself and leave it in the comments how it works for you. I'm Robert Estrin. This is livingpianos.com, your online piano resource. I know I've said some of these things before, but this is worthy of repetition. Try it out and see how it works for you. We'll see you next time here on livingpianos.com. Thanks for joining me.